This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
House Republicans continue debating President Trump's big, beautiful bill. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
President Trump says he's picked the concept he wants for the future Golden Dome missile defense program. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A censured state representative went to the Supreme Court. The verdict is in. I'm Katie Clark with details.
A former mayor of Atlanta throws her hat into the governor's race in Georgia. I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, stocks are coming off a losing day, but the S&P 500 index is just 3% from an all-time high. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
The Senate works on tips, more sensational testimony in the Sean Combs trial, and new FDA rules for COVID. All ahead on America in the Morning. President Trump meets with GOP lawmakers in the hopes of leading them closer to an agreement on his big, beautiful bill. John Stolnis has the story from Washington.
The president made the trek across town to the Capitol yesterday morning as a handful of House Republicans refused to sign on to the package that will fund most of Trump's first-term agenda. After the meeting, the president was pleased with what he heard.
Yeah, that was a meeting of love. Let me tell you, that was love in that room. There was no shouting. I think it was a meeting of love.
Reporters asked Trump if it was true that he told lawmakers inside the room that he was losing patience with holdouts who are demanding more spending cuts.
Oh, really? It's totally true. I never used the term. I didn't say losing. I didn't even talk about it. In fact, it's the opposite. I think we're going to get it done. I'm not losing patience. We're ahead of schedule. Anybody that told you that is a liar.
Some of those holdouts appeared unmoved by the president's visit, but House Speaker Mike Johnson also sounded an optimistic tone following President Trump's time at the Capitol and reminded people a bill like this has a lot of moving parts.
We never thought this was going to be an effortless process, because when you're doing this much in a bill this large and complicated and comprehensive, there's a lot of opinions in the room. We respect that in the Republican Party. We're people of deep principle and settled philosophy, and you're going to get differences of opinion when you work through these things.
Deficit hawks like Chip Roy are at odds with moderate GOP lawmakers like Mike Lawler over issues like tax breaks for SALT, the state and local tax local voters pay. Arguing to CNN's Manu Raju, offsets are needed to recoup any lost SALT tax revenue.
And if they increase the SALT cap, then my price for yes just goes up.
I fundamentally reject that. We have met the parameters that Chip Roy and the Freedom Caucus set. They can't keep moving the goalposts along the way.
The bill would contain sweeping tax breaks and cuts to Medicaid, food stamps, and green energy programs if it's passed, and add about $350 billion to Trump's border security, deportation efforts, and national defense plans. John Stolnis, Washington.
President Trump announces plans to begin building a sophisticated new missile defense shield modeled after the highly successful Iron Dome system deployed by Israel. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani has the latest on a plan that could be operational before Trump's term ends in 2028.
Mr. President, add this to the long and growing list of promises made and promises kept. Ultimately, this right here, the Golden Dome for America, is a game changer. It's a generational investment in the security of America and Americans.
President Trump says he's picked the concept he wants for the future Golden Dome missile defense program.
This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years.
The president says there's no technology like it, a $175 billion system that, for the first time, would put American weapons in space.
Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles, even if they are launched from other sides of the world, and even if they are launched from space.
A U.S. official says it's more likely there will be some initial capability by then.
As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful, and now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%.
China and Russia have put offensive weapons in space. The Pentagon's warned for years they're so advanced the U.S. needs an updated system.
Canada has called us and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better with Sleep Number. Now during the Memorial Day sale, all smart beds and bases are on sale. Plus, free home delivery, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. When we return, Supreme Court rules on trans sports. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Thanks for listening. America in the Morning continues with a check of the nation's weather this Wednesday. Always looking skyward. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Clouds and plenty of steady rain will accompany the latest slow-moving storm to reach the northeast. However, this feature also will be able to pull to the surface much colder air from higher up in the atmosphere, and this will result in an extended stretch of rather chilly conditions into the upcoming Memorial Day weekend. For today, AccuWeather real field temperatures are likely to peak in just the 40s and 50s from the New York City area through New Jersey, the eastern half of Pennsylvania, and much of western New York, a far cry from the historical average highs that are now mostly in the 70s, with a general 1 to 2 inches of rain also expected from southern New England into northern Virginia through tomorrow night. Today also brings a severe weather threat to a portion of this zone, as storms this afternoon may briefly be able to turn severe from east central Ohio toward the Pittsburgh area and into northern and eastern sections of West Virginia, bringing a few hours when hail and damaging winds may accompany any downpour. Other areas where severe weather may prove to be a bit more prolific, or at least more vigorous, will include eastern North Carolina and the zone from far southeastern Louisiana toward Jacksonville, Florida, where the hail and risk for damaging winds will be joined by the chance for tornadoes this afternoon. Largely dry conditions extend from the Mississippi Valley into the Pacific Northwest today, with just a spotty shower in the northern Rockies and the risk for afternoon thunderstorms over South Texas and the North Central Plains as exceptions. However, some rain also extends along the northern tier from Montana through the upper Midwest. In Cleveland, expect showers and clouds today, especially for this afternoon with the wet weather, perhaps even some thunder, the high 66. For Denver, today brings sunshine, a developing breeze, and a high of 78. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The U.S. Supreme Court orders the Maine state legislature to restore voting power to a censured representative over a social media post regarding transgender student athletes. Katie Clark has details.
A social media post got one lawmaker censured, and now she finally has her voice back after a Supreme Court ruling. Maine Republican State Representative Laurel Libby is an outspoken advocate against allowing transgender athletes to compete against girls. In February, she posted on social media the first name in quotes and a picture of a transgender athlete. The athlete competed against boys last year, this year competing against girls, and coming in first place. Representative Libby was censured after making the post. She asserted that the athlete's name was already made public before she posted. She went to lower courts in Maine to fight to appeal and reinstate her right to vote, finally taking her case to the Supreme Court, where they ruled on Tuesday in favor of Libby. She's asserted the censure went against her free speech rights. President Trump implemented a ban on trans athletes competing in women's sports. Recently, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Laurel Libby came together at a press conference about Maine not complying with Trump's ban. The Trump administration is now suing the state of Maine for not complying with a federal ban on transgender athletes. I'm Katie Clark.
A former Atlanta mayor is entering the Georgia governor's race. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Democrat and former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms officially announcing her bid for governor in Georgia this week. In a statement, Bottoms said people are looking for someone to fight for them, to make sure they're able to put food on their tables. She insisted that fighter is her. Bottoms, a graduate of Florida A&M University and most recently served as an advisor under the Biden administration. She joined State Senator Jason Estevez in the Democratic field. Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr is a highly touted Republican candidate in Georgia. Candidates are running for an open seat with Governor Brian Kemp term limited after 2 terms in office. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. Senate has passed a bill that would eliminate federal taxes on tips, advancing with the help of Democrats, a top campaign promise of President Trump. The idea was unveiled last year by Trump at a campaign stop in Nevada, which is home to scores of tipped workers. The bill, called the No Tax on Tips Act, will now head to the House, where the provision is expected to be passed one way or another, either via a standalone measure or weaved into the president's big, beautiful bill that will extend tax cuts. Trump says, "Don't touch Medicare." That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. A market recap and what to look forward to today. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after the major averages were in the red yesterday, but the S&P 500 index is just 3% from its all-time high.
It's perfectly okay to have a flat market given the trauma that we've lived through over the last, 6 weeks or so. It's perfectly okay for us to stall at some point. I guess the big concern here would be, are we experiencing a bull trap? Did we rally all the way back just to have the stool kicked out from under us? I hope that's not the case.
Ritholtz Wealth's Josh Brown on CNBC. Tesla CEO Elon Musk back at the Gigafactory in Austin, Texas, where he told CNBC his robo-taxis will be on local roads next month. And he talked about the future of the company.
Well, really, the only things that matter in the long term are autonomy and optimism. Those overwhelmingly dominate the future financial success of the company.
Musk says he'll commit to running Tesla for the next 5 years. Meantime, more Tesla owners are switching to Cadillac electric vehicles. GM says 10% of buyers new to Cadillac are trading in their Teslas for the new Caddy EVs. President Trump told Republicans on Capitol Hill to stop messing around, don't touch Medicaid, and get the budget bill done.
So the bill does have about $715 billion of Medicaid cuts in it right now. I think the president's message in this meeting was to tell the conservative hardliners not to push for further cuts to Medicaid. If you fully extend the expiring provisions in this bill, it's about $3.7 trillion in addition to the deficit. The fiscal situation's bad and getting worse, and we're seeing that in the long end of the curve.
That's Wolf Research head of policy and politics, Tobin Marcus on CNBC. But when President Trump again touted major tax cuts in the budget bill, investors got more worried that it increases the deficit, which is already so high that Moody's downgraded the U.S. credit rating last weekend.
Jim, his comments about tax cuts kind of collide with what we heard from Moody's, 48 hours ago?
It does, and I think everybody wants tax cuts. That's kind of universal, but we've seen interest rates, every time we hear those discussions, go up. This is one that's in our face. The idea that you at this very moment want to say largest tax cut, that's our job, is to say, look, this is going to make it so rates can go up, which makes it so there's a lot of bad things that happen in the economy.
CNBC Mad Money host Jim Cramer and CNBC's Carl Quintanilla. Subaru raising prices on several models, passing along the Trump tariffs to consumers. Increases range from $750 to $2,000. Earlier this month, Ford did the same thing and had to raise prices on some of its vehicles. On today's watch list, we get earnings from a big one, Target.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, new directives for the COVID vaccine. After these messages. There was more sensational testimony, as we learned from correspondent Julie Walker, in the sex trafficking and racketeering trial for disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs.
A former personal assistant to Sean Diddy Combs has given a glimpse into the hip-hop mogul's world when he worked for him from 2007 to 2009. David James testified Tuesday that Combs took drugs daily, including Percocet and ecstasy. He said his job sometimes required him to ensure that hotel rooms where Combs stayed under the name Frank Black were stocked with what he needed for comfort, including fresh underwear, an iPod, applesauce, vodka, baby oil, Viagra, and condoms. James told jurors he quit the job after he grew worried about his own safety. The Bad Boys record founder has pleaded not guilty to charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. Julie Walker, New York.
New requirements for COVID vaccines for healthy adults and children being announced by the FDA. Details from correspondent Lisa Dwyer.
Federal health officials will no longer routinely approve annual COVID-19 shots for younger adults and children who are healthy, and will use a streamlined approach that would make vaccines available to adults 65 and older, as well as children and younger adults with at least one health problem that puts them at higher risk. The new FDA framework urges companies to conduct large, lengthy studies before tweaked vaccines can be approved. Agency officials say the approach still could keep annual vaccinations available for between 100 to 200 million adults. Critics say the new policy will make vaccines less insurable and less available. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour,
Secretaries Rubio and Noem grilled on Capitol Hill. I'm Clayton Neville.
LaMonica McIver is being charged with assault. That's after a conflict with federal officers. I'm Haya Panjwani.
FEMA troubles in Mississippi and an arrest in the New Orleans jailbreak.
I'll have a recap of Google's AI conference. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
A bar stool at a famous Boston pub has sadly gone vacant. George Wendt has died at the age of 76. I'm Kevin Carr.
The White House's press secretary has again stood in the briefing room, this time facing kids Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. What are we looking for in weather today across the nation? With the forecast, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
After a fairly concentrated area of severe thunderstorms on Tuesday that focused on the Tennessee and lower Mississippi River valleys, as well as parts of central Illinois, today's severe weather threat becomes more spread out and less organized as the cold front responsible for that active weather heads closer to the southeast coastline. Near the core of the storm, actually tracking from the eastern Great Lakes toward the interior northeast through the day today, thunderstorms this afternoon from parts of Ohio to far southwestern Pennsylvania and much of northern West Virginia may bring small hail and 50 to 60 mile-per-hour winds. Storms may be a bit more potent on average this afternoon around the eastern third of North Carolina, as well as for the New Orleans area, across the Florida Panhandle, and around the Georgia-Florida border, where AccuWeather severe weather experts say that gusts to 60 to 70 miles per hour may be more frequent, not to mention the risk for hail and even some tornadoes. Between the northeast and southeast U.S. severe zones, today should feature rain and thunderstorms across much of Virginia, with thunder less likely within the steady rain developing from around the nation's capital through Long Island and most of New York State, signaling the start of an extended cloudy, rainy, and cool period that extends into at least the start of this Memorial Day weekend. Showers extend westward from there through Indiana, northern Illinois, and into Iowa, with a band of steadier rain and drizzle north of there from lower Michigan across central Minnesota and into the Dakotas. There may be an afternoon thunderstorm for far south Texas, as well as from Nebraska into northeastern Wyoming, with showers of rain and maybe some high elevation snow in the northern Rockies. Otherwise, dry conditions persist for the western U.S., with even the Pacific Northwest drying out for today as very warm air continues to spread across the southwest. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Two high-profile members of President Trump's cabinet were grilled by lawmakers on Capitol Hill Tuesday over administration policies. Correspondent Clayton Neville has a recap.
Democrats had a chance to go after their former colleague, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in a public setting. They didn't hold back. This exchange with Senator Chris Van Hollen, who was criticized for being photographed at a table with a margarita while meeting with a migrant who claimed to be deported by mistake.
I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State.
Rubio responded.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job. Based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr. Secretary.
Democrats tore into the Trump administration's dealings with Russia, recent cuts to government agencies, and deportations, including of student activists on American college campuses. Senator Chris Murphy asked Secretary Rubio about a dinner that he says the president is holding this week with who you referred to as foreigners.
I don't know anything about it. I didn't even know there was a dinner on Thursday night, so I'm not sure what you're referring to.
So you don't know whether any of the foreign individuals who are going to be meeting with the president this Thursday night, for instance, are on our list of sanctioned individuals, or whether any of those individuals have connections to, let's say, terrorist organizations abroad?
Well, I think if they had terrorist links, the Department of Homeland Security probably would not have allowed them into the country.
Another contentious hearing in D.C. was that of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who was asked and corrected about habeas corpus when talking about recent deportations.
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to...
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas
right
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
Senator Maggie Hassan stepped in.
If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea.
The senator re-asked the question.
Do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public reason in order to detain and imprison someone?
Yeah, I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
It has never
Let us be clear, though,
it has
that this
never
president...
been done. It has never been done without approval of Congress.
Noem clarified that the president has never communicated to his administration that they're going to consider suspending habeas corpus, but she did insist she thinks the Constitution allows him the right to consider doing that. I'm Clayton Neville.
A sitting member of Congress is facing federal charges for her role in a disruption at an ICE detention center where the mayor of that state's largest city was arrested. Correspondent Haya Panjwani has details on what legal challenges are faced.
Democratic representative from New Jersey, LaMonica McIver, is being charged with assault. That's after a conflict with federal officers outside an immigration detention center.
You can hate on ICE all you want. You can protest all you want. Sanctuary cities can look the other way while ICE goes arrest public safety threats from their communities, which is really their job, but you can't cross that line. You cannot knowingly harbor and conceal illegal aliens. It's a felony. You can't impede ICE law enforcement officers. It's a felony. You can't commit criminal trespass, and you certainly can't put hands on an officer or employee.
McIver's prosecution is a rare federal criminal case against a sitting member of Congress for allegations other than fraud or corruption. McIver's Democratic colleagues call the legal actions an infringement on lawmakers' official duties to serve their constituents and an effort to silence their opposition to immigration policy. Chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Yvette Clarke, addressed the president and his legal team at a news conference.
Mr. Trump, if you and the TV lawyer you have claimed dress up as the U.S. Attorney of the District of New Jersey want to enter into a contest of intestinal fortitude with this caucus and with these members, you should know our nerves are tempered in battle by foes far more frightening than you.
New Jersey's top federal prosecutor announced that her office agreed to dismiss a misdemeanor charge against Democratic Newark Mayor Ross Baraka. He was arrested after he attempted to join McIver in inspecting an immigration facility in their oversight capacity. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Israel responds to threats from several nations, including Canada, saying external pressure will not stop their goal of eradicating the terror group Hamas from the Gaza Strip, following the UK announcing a pause in trade with Israel. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the Israeli government has started allowing more aid into the Palestinian territory as the fighting continues, while talks in Qatar between Israel and Hamas delegations have broken down.
We are now entering a dark new phase in this conflict.
This is abominable. Civilians in Gaza facing starvation, homelessness, trauma, desperate for this war to end, now confront renewed bombardment, new displacement, and new suffering.
Trucks carrying aid are seen on the Israeli side of the Kerem Shalom crossing before they're expected to head into Gaza after officials said they would allow some aid in. Global experts are warning of famine in Gaza as a result of the Israeli blockade.
We have requested and received approval of more trucks to enter today. Many more than were approved yesterday. And we expect, of course, with that approval, many of them, hopefully all of them, to cross today to a point where they can be picked up and get further into the Gaza Strip.
Israel cut off all food, medicine and other supplies to the territory to pressure Hamas over ceasefire terms and to hand over the remaining hostages. Now Israel says it doesn't want a starvation crisis, jeopardizing its new military offensive in the territory of over 2 million Palestinians. Officials say the first trucks carrying aid, including baby food, entered the territory on Monday via the Kerem Shalom crossing. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
When we return on America in the Morning, a break in the prison escape case. And what's new with AI? Back after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. Amid federal agency changes, tornado victims in Mississippi are still waiting for disaster assistance 2 months after over a dozen twisters flattened homes and left 7 people dead. Jennifer King reports.
It's been more than 2 months since 18 tornadoes ripped through Mississippi, but as FEMA undergoes an overhaul, the state's request for disaster assistance faces delays.
We need federal help, and we need it desperately, and we need it now.
Bobby McGinnis is a firefighter in Tylertown.
President Trump said that America first, we're going to help our American folks first, but we haven't seen the federal folks down here.
Local County Emergency Management Director Royce McKee says debris removal operations have ground to a halt.
We don't have a declaration yet. People are still hurting. People no houses to go into.
A tornado destroyed Brian Lowry's Tylertown home.
FEMA, if you go on their website and put in Tylertown address, it says there's no federally declared disasters in your area.
It's not unusual for weeks to pass before FEMA approves a declaration. President Trump says the bureaucracy and slow response times are one of the reasons he wants to dismantle the federal agency. I'm Jennifer King.
A worker at a jail in New Orleans has been arrested in connection with the escape of 10 violent inmates last week. Correspondent Marcela Sanchez reports on the latest developments in the case as Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill, speaking on Fox News, says that anyone who helps the criminals still on the run will also face charges.
I think that we want to caution people now in the community not to help them because they too will be charged as accessories to escape or principals to escape. And so they're going to be facing charges too. I mean, we will recover these individuals. They will have additional charges.
Authorities say they've arrested an Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office employee who they believe helped 10 inmates escape. The inmates escaped through a hole in a wall behind a toilet in the early hours of Friday at the Orleans Justice Center. 4 have since been apprehended and 6 remain at large. Since the escape, Sheriff Susan Hudson has pointed to long-standing deficiencies such as faulty locks and staffing shortages. But a growing number of state and local officials have blamed her for failing to keep the inmates locked up. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
Into late last night, confirmed tornado touchdowns were reported in Alabama, Tennessee, and Illinois. Widespread severe thunderstorms prompted dozens of tornado warnings. 8th consecutive day of destructive severe weather that's plagued parts of the U.S. In these recent round of storms, there's been at least 28 people killed and $9 billion in damages. That, according to AccuWeather. An apology years in the making. Correspondent Julie Walker reports New York's governor is trying to make things right with the Seneca Indian Nation for the state's role in boarding school abuse.
The sins of the past is how Governor Kathy Hochul characterizes what went on at the Thomas Indian School in Western New York for decades.
I, Governor Kathy Hochul, apologize to the Seneca Nation of Indians and survivors and descendants from all nations who attended the Thomas Indian School. And I recognize, on behalf of the people of this state, the atrocities that were committed there and the enduring trauma that's been inflicted upon the Seneca and all indigenous peoples across our state.
Her apology, the first by a New York governor, which she says is long overdue.
Instead of being a haven for orphaned children, it became a place of nightmares, a place some would call a torture chamber, a site of sanctioned ethnic cleansing is what was going here. Try to eradicate the long, proud story of the Seneca.
She wants school curriculum to reflect this history. Seneca's president accepted the apology, but some tribe members are skeptical. Julie Walker, New York.
At Google's annual tech conference, to no one's surprise, a ton of new AI projects are coming soon to a computer near you. Chuck Palm has a look at the future in today's Tech Report.
Google's Alphabet company releases a ton of information at their annual I/O conference held in Mountain View, California. CEO Sundar Pichai said at the conference that Alphabet would build an AI that would compete on cost and, quote, over and over, they've been able to deliver the best models at the most effective price points. Recently, Google has been trying to play catch-up with competitors after falling flat-footed on the release of the Microsoft-backed ChatGPT in 2022. Google's new vision for AI will be search that lets consumers ask virtually anything from simple queries to complex research questions with a fully integrated AI search. Some new features will come at a premium, like Google's AI Ultra plan, which will be $249.99 a month and is comparable to the developer's version of OpenAI at $200 a month. Google also announced a partnership with Samsung for an XR headset and a new version of their Google Reality glasses. For more, visit chuckpalm.com.
Sports is in this Wednesday morning. Here's our Robert Workman.
NBA Conference Finals underway in the West on Tuesday. The top-seeded Thunder came on strong in the second half to take down the Timberwolves 114-88 in Game 1. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 20 of his game-high 31 points after intermission.
We didn't panic, obviously, in the struggles in the first half. We missed a bunch of layups as a group. We missed free throws, like the easy ones. And we knew that we stuck with it. They would eventually fall, and they did.
Game 2 in OKC tomorrow. Tonight in the East, Game 1 at Madison Square Garden has the Pacers and the Knicks. Stanley Cup Conference Finals underway as well. In the East, the defending champion Panthers sailed past the Hurricanes 5-2 to take Game 1. Game 2 in Raleigh tomorrow night. Tonight in the West, it's Game 1 between the Oilers and the Stars in Dallas. 4 shutouts on Tuesday night in baseball. The Pirates sank the Reds 1-0 behind the 5-hit pitching of Bailey Falter in the quarters. White Sox whitewashed the Mariners 1-0. Adrian Hauser went 6 innings in his season debut. Red Sox blanked the Mets 2-0. It turned into a bullpen game when Boston starter Walker Buehler was ejected in the third inning for arguing with the home plate umpire. 7 pitchers wound up combining on a 4-hitter. And the Blue Jays shut out the Padres 3-0 behind the 5-hit pitching of Chris Bassett and the Hounds. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, childish questions at a White House press briefing. After these messages. A member of the cast of one of America's most popular television programs has passed away. Correspondent Kevin Carr with more on the passing of actor George Wendt.
Iconic television actor George Wendt passed away on Tuesday at the age of 76. Born in Chicago, Wendt joined the Second City in 1975, where he found a love for live theater and comedy. He had small parts on television in the late 70s and early 80s, including appearances on Taxi, Soap, and MASH. However, it was the role of Norm Peterson in the hit series Cheers that put him on the map.
Afternoon, everybody.
Hey, what's happening, Norm?
It's a dog-eat-dog world, Sammy, and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear.
The role of Noem made him a cultural icon, with Wendt appearing in every episode of the series. He earned 6 Primetime Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy. He later appeared in a slew of television series, often as a guest star or in a reunion with a former cast member like Ted Danson on Becker in 2002.
I rooted my ex-wife to cheat on me, take half my money.
I've been there. Didn't mind the cheating so much, but the money really hurts, doesn't it?
Wendt also occasionally played against type, like the killer in Columbo in 1995.
You want a confession? All right, I confess. I get it.
Wendt is survived by his wife, Bernadette Burkett, and their children. I'm Kevin Carr.
Finally today, President Trump's spokesperson Caroline Leavitt is used to facing tough questions from the media at her White House briefings. But as the West Wing marked Take Your Daughters and Sons to Work Day, she instead faced a number of interesting topics from kids. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani has more.
The White House's press secretary has again stood in the briefing room, this time facing kids of reporters and administration employees.
I am happy to take some of your questions.
Some dealt with policy.
What's the state of the border?
What is Donald Trump willing to do about climate change?
But mostly they were about food.
I think his favorite is probably steak. He loves McDonald's hamburgers and French fries. I have seen the president eat ice cream sundaes.
And candy.
He likes pink Starburst and Tootsie Rolls.
Who's the president's favorite kid?
That is a very controversial question, and I am not going to answer it.
And a little less controversial.
Which is Donald Trump's favorite president besides himself?
It's a good question, because it would be probably himself.
Leavitt's favorite?
Donald Trump. Thank you guys so very much.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Thank you for coming.
And that's our show for today, Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trouts. This is Westwood One.